I'm familiar with. A lot of you have already been participating in the UAS program here in Maryland Wing. So what I'm giving you here is a little bit of a broader overview of how UAS is playing into the CAP mission and some of the future plans, as well as some of the current aircraft that we are using that some of you may not be familiar with. Let's see, make my slides move. There we go. Okay, so we're going to cover cadet involvement because we do actually encourage cadet involvement in the UAS program. Earlier in the cadet programs briefing from Colonel David Trick, he was talking about the great work that's being done down at St. Mary's with their cadets, but we'd like to expand that. Then we're going to talk about the aerospace education aspects, emergency services. I'll go over the airframe types that we currently operate. Short discussion on the counter sUAS program known as Red Cell, and then some details on the implementation that we're pushing forward throughout the nation. And there will be time for questions. Okay, bottom line, we really encourage cadets to participate in the UAS program. And the reason is because we can have 16-year-old cadets flying as UAS mission pilots if they have the CAP qualifications and a Part 107, which a 16-year-old can get a Part 107 certificate from the FAA. Any age of cadet can operate as a visual observer, and what that is, for those of you who don't know, is every team that CAP sends out to do UAS work consists of a minimum of 2 people, a mission pilot and a technician / visual observer. And a lot of you who've been through the training know what a visual observer is, and basically it's somebody who observes the UAS, assists the pilot, helps ensure safety of the mission, and always keeps eyes on the actual vehicle during the course of the mission. Highlighted in red here is a warning about the Red Cell. Because of the nature of that program, cadets are not permitted to participate in Red Cell missions. Now, what we're trying to do here is get more cadet involvement nationwide, but in the Mid-Atlantic region as well. Cadets, some of you have kids, you know, they take to this quite quickly. They are used to operating things in virtual space using just their thumbs, and that's pretty much how we fly a drone, is with our thumbs. It's a 2-stick controller, and it almost looks like an Xbox or a Nintendo controller. It also helps that the cadets all seem to know how to use computers, and we use computers a lot in the UAS world, both for mission planning and for post-mission processing of imagery. And as we proved during one of the flood missions in South Carolina, the cadets can actually do this computer work faster than we can. And we had cadets processing photographs that were coming back from the sorties, and it's a short hop from being able to do this photo upload to doing the kinds of work that we do with the imagery we capture off of our UAS equipment. And the UAS courses that are offered at NISA, the cadets are knocking it out of the park. And as was highlighted earlier, there is a huge career field opening up, and it gets bigger every year in the UAS world. So if we can equip our cadets with the skills while they're still in high school, that can help steer them into a career and collegiate success. In the aerospace education side of things, we do have STEM kits that are specific to UAS. We have a micro quadcopter, which is almost a toy. We have bigger quadcopters that are big enough to have to be FAA registered. We do have in the STEM kits an RC aircraft. I don't think I've seen too many of these of late, and I think they're still offering the Raspberry Pi computer, which is a fully functioning Linux light computer that uses a special operating system variant of Linux. It's about the size of a, oh, let's see. I was going to say a pack of cigarettes, but I don't know if anybody knows what that looks like anymore. For CAP flying, if you do not have a Part 107, you can fly our UAS equipment, but you're classed as a recreational pilot. And there are still a lot of aerospace education, like demonstration and training activities. One of the things that we're trying to do here, and actually in many areas of the country, is we're partnering with Aircraft Modeling Association airfields. South Prince George's County, there's an airfield at Conterra, there's one up south of Baltimore, and there's about, I don't know, 10, 12 fields throughout the area. And cadets can get free membership in the AMA. For adults, it's advisable to have it because it provides us with some additional insurance when we're operating radio-controlled equipment. In the emergency services area, we're seeing a lot of this already in the disaster relief area, not so much in search and rescue in our region, but in other parts of the country, we have seen UAS equipment being used in search and rescue, and of course in the Homeland Security mission. On the disaster relief side, we have a number of different options available. We can provide live video streaming from some of our equipment, and we can do low altitude, and when I say low altitude, I mean below 400 feet, high resolution imagery that can be stitched together after the flight and create orthomosaic imagery and 3D modeling of an area. Then critical infrastructure assessment. So we can do before and after comparisons. We can fly our unit in the exact same path that we did prior to an event, after an event, and make the assessment a lot easier in terms of finding damage. For the search and rescue side, we have, in Maryland Wing, we have used in SARXs, we have used one of our UAS teams to assist a ground team in doing visual search. Thermal imagery is another area, and we haven't used it here in Maryland Wing because the camera is rather expensive and headquarters maintains tight control on those and ships them out only when they're needed. On the Homeland Security side, we've worked with FEMA. That was something that was touched on a little bit in the incident data collection briefing that came just before this in the earlier session. In particular, we were using a combination of disaster relief and Homeland Security when we went down and supported the Puerto Rico mission. In fact, I think we've been there 3 times now with UAS equipment. Both after the hurricane last year and the earthquake earlier this year. We've provided a lot of good support to both the FEMA and other federal government entities. Georeferenced orthomosaic. That's a pretty polysyllabic term, and all it really means is we can take pictures. We have some equipment that's ground equipment, and we can get down to 2 centimeter resolution in our photographs, and it is almost exactly accurate in terms of you roll over a map and it shows you a coordinate, and that's the actual coordinate of the object. What you're seeing here is a test area debris field, the big pile of broken stuff in the middle of the image simulates collapsed buildings. We can fly our UAS equipment under manual control through an area like that might be hazardous for humans and get some pretty high resolution photographs that could be used by emergency responders to determine where it is safe to enter that debris field. In missing person searches, this has been used. We have used UAS equipment in, I believe it was North Dakota, but you can fly a UAS in conditions where we can't launch a manned aircraft. We're limited in altitude to 400 feet without a waiver from the FAA, and that's 400 feet above the ground or above the highest obstacle that you're searching over top of. If the ceiling is 500 feet, we're not going to fly an manned aircraft to do a search, but we can launch a UAS. And I'm getting a question if somebody's not seeing the slides. Is everyone seeing the slides? Just chat in the chat, just indicate yes. Okay, good. All right, so the image on the left is a visible light image. It's pretty apparent that it would be easy to find a person unless they were wearing camo. The image on the right is an infrared image that's taken off of one of the cameras that we typically use. And you can see where even under not a heavy tree canopy, but under a tree canopy, you would be able to find people pretty easily just from their heat signature. In the emergency services and disaster relief future capabilities, we are working on actual survey quality mapping. We have equipment that is similar to what is used for property surveying. Nowadays, they use GPSs. They're high resolution GPS. We have one of these that we can place on the ground with a reference mark and have that in the field of the photography and actually produce, as I said earlier, high resolution orthomosaic imagery. That's a regional capability that we're trying to push out so that we would have, within FEMA regions, we would have at least one unit capable of doing this type of mapping. Hyperspectral imagery is another area that we're looking into. For those of you that are familiar with Archer, this is a drone flyable equivalent of Archer. We can put a LiDAR unit. It's about a $25,000 camera, basically, that does pretty high resolution photographs using LiDAR technology. And then we're also doing some higher end imagery processing. The cameras that we're using are at least 10 megapixel. And one of the other capabilities that I've seen coming up from a number of different vendors is actual DF equipment that can be flown. It's light enough to be flown on one of our UASs. Just as an aside, for those of you that aren't familiar with the rules regarding UAS equipment, we operate under Part 107, and we're limited to equipment that's 55 pounds or less, including any attached payload. 55 pounds is a lot. None of the equipment that we currently have can fly anywhere near that amount of weight. And that's because we use small UASs and medium UASs. And the largest one we have is called the Event 38, E384. On the small side, a lot of you have seen these. In fact, a lot of you probably own personal versions of this, the DJI Phantom 4. It's a small quadcopter. Then there's the DJI Mavic 2. We have a number of those. The downside of the DJI equipment is that we cannot use those on Air Force missions. To bridge that gap, we are now in possession of a number of InstantEye Mark III Gen 4 units. These were originally produced as a way of the company that makes them wanted to break into the DoD world, and the InstantEye was developed with an encrypted downlink, no data storage on the UAS unit itself. The downside of the InstantEye is that it does not have a gimbal stabilized camera. We use these in Puerto Rico, and it was mixed success. There's still we based on our experience, there's still some work to be done on perfecting that system. What we're moving to now is the Skydio 2. It's a small UAS quadcopter. They're US produced. They have a pretty good high resolution camera on them for doing photography and video. And they also have 6 other obstacle avoidance cameras. If you go to the Skydio website and look at some of their promo videos, it's pretty impressive. They're tracking a mountain biker going down through a forest, and the drone follows him and doesn't hit a tree, and that's just astounding. On the medium-sized world, we have the RC Timer F800, the Skylark Endurance Quad, and the DJI Inspire 2. The Endurance Quad, I think we're phasing that out. It's a bit problematic. It's pretty tough to fly, and they're rather fragile. You'll see a picture of those in a minute. And on the bigger side, we have the DJI Matrice 210, and as I mentioned, the Event 38 E384. That's a fixed wing, high wing pusher prop with an inboard GPS and high resolution Sony camera. It flies using a Kittyhawk controller, so we can actually upload a flight path with associated altitudes for the waypoints and fly that thing completely automatic all the way from takeoff to landing. This is a Phantom 4. Actually, I think this is a Phantom 3. It's an older picture. You can see the camera hanging from a shock-mounted gimbal. We can only get about 25 minutes of flight, and that's under ideal conditions. But it does have a 12 megapixel camera, and there is one unit available that does have a multispectral camera and a 20 megapixel Mavic camera, which is it's a pretty expensive survey camera that takes really, really good pictures. But again, we can't use these for Air Force missions. This is the Skydio 2. The picture does not really give you a good feel for the size of it, but it's probably only about 10 inches from diagonally from one motor to the other. Has a little bit lower flight time, but it does have a 4K 60 video, and it does take 12 megapixel still cameras. Allegedly, it'll fly 3.5 kilometers from the controller, which is probably beyond line of sight. So we would, if we were flying that, we would be definitely seeking a waiver. And as I mentioned, it does have built-in obstacle avoidance. I tested this a couple of weeks ago where I had it circling a person, and there was a tree in the path, and I almost panicked. But lo and behold, the obstacle avoidance software recognized the tree, climbed in altitude, went over the tree, and then dropped back down to the original altitude. So I've developed at least a modicum of trust in that obstacle avoidance software. This is the DJI Mavic 2. It's a pretty good sized unit. It has some ancillary equipment that can be mounted to it, such as a speaker and a spotlight. And the speaker could be used if you were flying over a lost person and you wanted to give them directions or tell them to stay put because there's a ground team on the way. That would be possible. Again, it does have a pretty good IR sensor that's available on that, and it'll fly for 30 minutes. This is the InstantEye. It's pretty easy to see. That big black box underneath it is actually the battery. The advantage we have with the InstantEye is that it is somewhat weatherproof. You can fly this in light rain. It does have, on the ISR version, it has that high resolution camera. We can side mount right above and to the opposite side of that red plug that you see here. We can mount this Mavic survey camera, and that's what we used in Puerto Rico for the FEMA mission. And again, it is Air Force approved. In the Homeland Security version of this, we actually have the ability to mount below the battery essentially it's a drop carriage. It has a radio activated opening mechanism where you can put some small payload such as a cell phone or a small handheld GPS unit if you wanted to drop that to someone in a wilderness rescue situation. This is the Inspire 2. It's also a high resolution camera. This is often used for, until some higher end units have come along, this was what was used for doing a lot of the drone videos that you see in television productions. That ZenMuse camera is a pretty high-end camera, and it does have georeferencing because the images all get stamped with the coordinates of the drone, of the UAS, at the time the picture was taken. This is the Endurance Quad. As I mentioned, it's pretty flimsy. It looks like it was homemade because it was. It was made custom for us by I don't know who made it, but it's been around for probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years maybe. You can see the green camera here mounted on the front of it. It's on a gimbal. It has a really big battery. It's the size of a brick. These props that you see are 10 inches and they are carbon fiber and they are extremely dangerous. And there's a GPS receiver here, or antenna rather, mounted on a stalk that sits above the fuselage. These are difficult to fly. They do fly for 35 to 40 minutes, but landing them is a challenge. I will be honest and say that what I've heard is that they are pretty easy to break, and in fact, most of the time when you fly one, it ends up getting broken. This is a Matrice 210. It flies for up to 35 minutes. You can see how the cameras are, there's 2 cameras able to be mounted on that. It does have upward obstacle avoidance, so you can fly beneath things and not worry about running into it. It will mount an infrared camera. And I don't know how many of these we have, but again, it's a limited number and they are only sent out as needed. But I like the GPS accuracy down to 2 centimeters. This would be really useful for the survey type missions. And here is the Event 38 E384. The picture doesn't really give you an indication, but that wingspan is about 6 feet. And the fuselage here is, it's styrofoam. It's a dense styrofoam. So it can survive landing on the belly, which is how it lands. It's got a downward facing camera mounted in the nose. There's a GPS puck mounted in the nose and a pretty good sized battery back here in the fuselage. It's hand launched. I don't think I'd want to try taking it off from the ground. Once it's in the air, we usually have a pre-programmed mapping route for it to fly. It'll fly that route with a high degree of accuracy, and then you can program in an actual landing, so it will come back and land automatically. At any point during a mission, of course, you can take over it and fly it manually. It is just about the same size, and it flies just about exactly like an RQ-11 for anybody who's ex-military and may have flown an RQ-11. That 20 megapixel mapping camera does produce some pretty impressive imagery. It'll fly up to 90 minutes in a no wind condition. What this allows us to do is map a huge area in one flight. And you can, through the ArduPilot mission planner, we can keep track of it while it's on the mission, and at any point in time, if we needed to abort, we can automatically abort it. We can have it fly back to a given waypoint. The mission planner software is actually a pretty capable piece of software. There was a survey or a study that somebody did about 1.5 years ago that showed the difference in area between using this versus using one of our quadcopters. It's almost no comparison. You can do 10 times the area with one of these that you can with a quadcopter based on just the flight times. On to the counter UAS support mission. This is a mission similar to Green Flag, directly supporting the military, in particular the Air Force. It's called Red Cell as a cover term. You have to apply for participation. You have to be recommended by your commander. That application then comes up through me and then gets sent off to national. We are directly supporting the security forces in the U.S. Air Force at selected installations. We fly these units with the security forces. It does require a crew of 4 people typically. We don't ever take just one UAS with us. Typically, we're bringing at least 2 quads and 2 fixed wings. And as I mentioned earlier, this is only for senior members. It is an intercept mission, but they use non-kinetic equipment, so we don't have to worry about our UASs getting broken, or at least not broken by the participating Sec 4 members. If you have questions about what this is, or you want more information, you can get in touch with me directly. Some of the updates. At this point, every wing should have 1 or more kits for UAS. In Maryland Wing, we have 7 P4Ps. We have at least 2 endurance quads, 1 at St. Mary's and 1 in my office here. We now have 1 Skydio 2. They're slow rolling these. They're not inexpensive, and I'm not sure where the funding came from for these, but the Skydio 2 unit that we're getting it's about $1,500 a copy. And we also have a Xerox training UAS. It's small. It's probably only about 8 to 10 inches across. We have fixed wing E384s in each FEMA region. The unit for our FEMA region is based in Delaware Wing, which isn't a problem. They're not that far away. If we wanted to get it for training, all we have to do is ask. The National UAS Capability Director has mandated that we're going to have an IOC and an FOC, initial operational capacity and full operational capacity. IOC means we have 5 qualified pilots and 5 technicians. So in essence, 5 teams. Full operational capability or capacity is 10 teams, 10 pilots, 10 technicians. And by the way, a technician can be a pilot, and a pilot can be a technician. So it's to everyone's advantage to be trained in both. And the only difference is that the pilot has to have the 107, the technician does not. So we do have region and national level response capability. If anybody needs a UAS team, Maryland Wing does have enough teams. We do have initial operational capacity of 5 teams. There is an operations plan at the national and regional level. And we do have a capability to get approval for waivers within just a few hours. There is a big pushback, at least 2, maybe 3 of them, that is at headquarters CAP. It will support any of these national or regional level support missions that we get. That pushback is a pallet. It has a number of UASs. It has IT equipment, computers basically, and Wi-Fi's or hotspots. It has a small generator and a number of handheld radios for the teams to use. And if a need arose that we got called to support something, we could have that pushback here within a day. Our future goals, we want to have UAS capabilities at every designated incident command post. Here in Maryland Wing, I believe that we're standing up. We have claimed that we have 3 ICPs. That would be at Granite, at our headquarters, at Martin State, and at St. Mary's. We plan to have a true forward-looking infrared capability to support ground teams by 2023. And we're working on a ground team FLIR integration course that will be trained through NISA. And basically that is going to teach ground teams how to work with UAS teams and vice versa. As I mentioned, we're trying to upgrade that F800 extended endurance quad to get the same capability with something that's not quite as flimsy. We want to have one of those matrices and the survey GPS system that I mentioned for real-time kinematics and post-photo for each FEMA region. They're still testing that at headquarters CAP. It's not a simple system to set up and deploy, and it's quite a few pieces of equipment. So we're still working on getting that rolled out to the regions. One thing that's important to mention here, the qualifications for pilot require a certain number of hours of logged UAS operational time. And the way that we're within CAP, we're tracking that log time. I mean, you can keep your own log, and most pilots do, just like a manned aircraft pilots do. What CAP did was obtain an unlimited license account with Kittyhawk.io. The Kittyhawk app is available on the iPhone and on Android platforms, and they have a website, and everyone can get their account activated pretty easily. It does require that you use a CAP email address to set up that account. It's pretty easy to use. It has a number of helpful features built into the software, such as telling you if you're in a safe to fly area, gives you the weather at your current location, and it helps us do fleet tracking. Every one of our UAS assets, at least all of the DJI equipment, is currently in Kittyhawk. So if a UAS user is going out to fly and they want to log their time in Kittyhawk, they can actually pick from a pull down which drone they're flying. It's supposed to provide battery tracking, but all the batteries have not been entered into the system yet, and somebody needs to mute their mic. Thanks, Paul.
John, you're muted.
Major Ralph, can you?
Did I get muted? Okay. Somebody muted me. I'm back. I got caught off during the description of Lance. Low altitude authorization and notification. If you are flying in an area near an airport, you have to get approval, and this notifies a number of different agencies that you're going to be flying. You tell it where you are, how high you're going to be, and I've noticed at least on WingX Pro, and I think I saw it on SkyVector, on the online version of SkyVector. It'll actually pop up little circles that show you where UAS operations might be conducted, and that's all based off of this Lance authorization. As I mentioned, it does provide pilot logging, and a pretty cool feature is that we can stream video from Kittyhawk from the UAS through Kittyhawk to some customer. That is still rolling out. I think most everybody that's currently UAS qualified here in Maryland Wing has their account. If they don't, why not? And let's see. How do we get more UAS equipment? Well, obviously, headquarters CAP has a limited budget. A lot of units, well, not a lot, but some units seem to have more financial resources than headquarters CAP. It is perfectly permissible for a unit to go out and buy their own equipment. We do want you to buy, if you are buying something, we do want you to be something that's capable of operating in our mission space. And we would appreciate coordinating that purchase or any donations that you're receiving through the A3DOU, that's Director of Operations for UAS. Once you acquire it, we want you to have that registered through CAP with the FAA. And the reason for that is it saves the FAA a lot of paperwork. If CAP registers them all for you, the FAA doesn't get hundreds of individual accounts. Similar to the way we register our manned aircraft, they're all registered as belonging to a CAP versus belonging to individual wings. So that is the bulk of my briefing, and I am perfectly open for questions. We have plenty of time left in this session. Oh, by the way, one thing I should mention, we did select a DOU a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still trying to get that information broadcast out and get him up to speed on how CAP works the UAS program. So, any questions?
Is there a senior member 101 for USAF? Any kind of class? Over.
Okay, a class. There is not a specific class. We here in the wing have been organizing training sessions. There's a Facebook group that is run by, well, it's not run by, it's participated in by a lot of people across the country. And one of the things that I've seen announced on there is a guy over in Delaware wing who's a quite good UAS pilot. He flies them commercially for his own business. He's been conducting a number of online training sessions here through COVID to get all of the squitter tasks taken care of. Of course, then there is the flying portion of every qualification. Did that answer the question, I hope?
Yes. You said that is there some kind of online class that we can take? Over.
Well, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. The very first thing, if you're going to go all the way through to mission pilot for CAP, you're going to have to do a 107. The training for 107 is not in our scope. There are a number of different places you can get that training, and I couldn't point you to something specific right at the moment, but I think no, yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I can point you to. Somebody asked about the Facebook group. I'm trying to find that for you right now. It's called Civil Air Patrol sUAS Mission Pilots and Technicians. It's a rather lengthy name. Let me see if I can copy the link, and I will put that in the chat. There you go. For your reading pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Just to confirm, to use Kittyhawk IO, you need a CAP email address.
Yes, and it's pretty easy to obtain one of those. All you have to do is on eServices, I believe there's a link that you can use to acquire one of those. And what you'll get is an mdwg.cap.gov. You don't need the cap.gov that you see on my address here.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody's asking how we can finish checkoff requirements. What you have to do is contact the DOU, me, or Colonel Don Els and get that scheduled. Right now, Don Els and myself are the only two check pilots in Maryland Wing. We're trying to work on fixing that because it's not sustainable to have only two of us able to do that. But just send me an email and we'll get something set up. There is a training session tomorrow at Wing Headquarters, provided the weather cooperates.
What time is the training session?
I have to plead ignorance. I think he was planning on having people show up around 9 a.m., but he was on the session here a little while ago. I don't know if he left or not. Don Els, if you're on, can you tell me what time that session is tomorrow? Looks like he dropped off. Let's see if I can find out for you real quick.
Thank you.
I haven't checked the full weather report for tomorrow. I was supposed to do some manned aircraft flying. The prerequisites for training. There really are no prerequisites right now. If you don't have anything done on your squitter, it might be an opportunity to get a few of those things taken care of, in particular things with that have to do with familiarity with the equipment and setting it up and taking it back apart. If you go and look at the squitter, if you're already a manned pilot, which Rudy, I think you are, you already meet most of the squitter requirements because it looks a lot like Mission Scanner and Mission Observer. We want you to know how to read a chart. We want you to know what airspace is. We want you to understand weather. That squitter is available in eServices Ops Quals, so you should go and have a look at it. And go ahead and, if you plan on doing this, go ahead and start knocking off your squitter items. Anything else? Any other questions? If you don't think of your question right now and you want to email me later, please feel free to use that email address you see on the slides right there. I'm pretty good about responding to emails, and I really would like to see more cadets get involved. And again, we're tight on equipment in the wing. We only have about 7 units that we can train with, but we do the best we can with that. If we wanted to really do this right, we'd be trying to put something in our budget to buy some more equipment on our own, and we may have to do that next fiscal year because our budget's already set for this fiscal.
Hey, John, this is Tim McGreer. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Tim, hi.
Yeah, hi. New senior member, Lee Airport, Squadron 28. Real quick, the weather down here in Edgewater tomorrow. Cloudy, occasional rain in the afternoon, high 64, etc. I'm also a retired Air Force pilot, or retired airline pilot. I'm working on the manned side to get checked out as a Civil Air Patrol pilot. I'm also in the process of getting my commercial drone operator's license, and that is going to be what I do in my retirement life, and do some drone missions. If you're interested, I'll tell you what program I'm doing that through. But my real question is this, just like on the manned side, there's a process whereby a commercial airline transport pilot, etc., would onboard with the Civil Air Patrol. On the UAS side, what is the process for a person that already has his remote pilot certificate to onboard with the Civil Air Patrol as a UAS qualified pilot?
Good question. Like most of our qualifications, what is required is that you go through the squitter in Ops Quals. You can find it pretty easily, and get all your qualifications signed off and validated by a skills evaluation trainer, and then just come out and do the requisite number of training flights. And if you've already got the skills, you can knock this out probably in a week. Given the fact that you've got a lot of manned flight experience, most of the square items are going to be just a check off. It's not a complicated process.
Very good. And as a follow-up, I will have my own drone as a result of having my own business. Is there a way that I can volunteer my drone and my time to do CAP missions as a CAP member?
Yes, with one caveat. If you're going to bring your own equipment, we are not liable. So if your equipment gets damaged in the course of that mission, it's on you. And we will say, gee, sorry about that. And, you know, commiserate with you, but we can't accept financial responsibility for member supplied equipment.
Understood. Thank you.
And I look forward to having you involved in the program. Sound like you'd be a good asset for us.
Well, I'm going to eat the elephant one bite at a time and get checked out on the manned side, and then we're getting checked out on the unmanned side.
Great. Very good. For those of you that can see the comments over on the side of the screen there, Mihai Sirbu over at Montgomery Senior Squadron, he is the assistant DOU, and he's been flying some drones for a while now as well, quadcopters, and he's over near Gaithersburg, and he can work with anybody in that area that would be interested in doing training. Again, we don't have a unit, one of the CAP units there, but we can get one located there if that's something that we need.
I have my own drone, but the more the merrier.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And by the way, the newly appointed DOU, I haven't seen him on here yet. I don't know if he's actually signed in today. His name is An Ho. He's a rather new member. He is a member over at the Apollo Senior Squadron, and he actually flew drones commercially for Textron, and he teaches UAS courses at a local community college. So he's pretty busy, as you might imagine. All right. Oh, Tim, I already took care of your questions. So I see your hand was raised there. Any other questions, comments, complaints? No complaints. Questions or comments? Great. Well, I'll give you back 10 minutes of your time. I really do appreciate everyone who signed in here and participated. We had some good questions, and if there's any other information I can give you about where we're going with this program, or what kind of equipment we might be looking forward to getting, or if anybody wants to work with fixed wing, let me know, and I will do my best to get that loaner from Delaware Wing, and we can start flying that. I will tell you right now that it's getting cold, and it's no fun to fly drones in the cold because your hands get pretty cold holding that controller. I still haven't heard from Don on the time for tomorrow. Oh, he's going to send out an email to the wing. So just stand by, watch your email, and he will give you the times for tomorrow. All right. That's all I got. Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to fill out the survey.
This concludes the formal portion. Thank you for your participation. I've posted the survey in the chat. And again, this recording will auto-post momentarily.